Greetings, everyone. Welcome to White Collar Week. This is our Tuesday night speaker series. And tonight we have a very special speaker, Tarra Simmons. I'm going to tell you all about her in a couple of minutes, but I do have some housekeeping and some announcements to make. I'm Jeff Grant, and welcome. I want to let you first know that this is sponsored by our White Collar Support Group that meets on Monday evenings on Zoom at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you would like to join us, if you are directly justice impacted, you can join us. It is a white collar support group. You can get information on our website. That's prisonist.org. That's prisonist like feminist, and all kinds of information, including how to get on our mailing list, and also how to attend our meetings on Monday nights. We another speaker coming up in July, on July 9th. We have Sabrina Morgan. She's a white collar support group member, and she's got an incredible story that I'm not going to give you too much away tonight, but I can tell you that she was involved in a police shooting where, among other things, she was shot in the back of the head. So not the story we hear all the time, but she's lived through it, and she's here to tell us all about it on July 9th. We also have a conference coming up on October 19th. That's the world's first conference by white collar justice impacted people for white collar justice impacted people. And that'll be on Zoom. A lot of information to come. You can get more information right now on the special website we're setting up, which is whitecollarconference.com. And we'll be loading up all kinds of information about the conference and sponsorship opportunities and volunteer opportunities. So stay tuned for more of that. So that's our white collar conference. And lastly, I want to let you know that the night after our usual Monday night call, but this week on Wednesday night, so the night after this being taped on Tuesday night, on TikTok Live, we have Sabrina Morgan, who's going to be leading a conversation about this week's topic that we talked about on our white collar support group, which is taking the high road, and specifically about leaning into our core values. And if I get a chance, I'll put some of those core values in chat for you tonight. But so I hope you'll join Sabrina on TikTok Live. You can find her at Sabrina Morgan. That's her handle on TikTok. And that will start at 7 p.m. Central. So that's 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on TikTok. So that's it for our announcements. I want to introduce our speaker tonight, Tarra Simmons. I've never actually met Tarra in person, but she's very inspiring. She's done incredible things. I've been following her for quite a while, as have many of us, or maybe even most of us. So let me read a little thing here. We're honored to have Tarra as the June speaker tonight in our White Collar Support Group Tuesday speaker series. Her story of coming back from life's difficulties is an inspiring beacon of hope for us all. In 2011, Tarra was sentenced to 30 months in prison for theft, drug, and firearm crimes. In 2017, she graduated from Seattle University School of Law with honors. After law school, she was not allowed to sit for the Washington State Bar exam due to her status as a former convicted felon. She challenged that she challenged the Washington State Bar Association rules in the Washington State Supreme Court, and she won. The court unanimously ruled in her favor on the same day, and she was sworn in as an attorney in the state of Washington on June 16, 2018. In 2020, she made history when she was elected to the Washington State Legislature, and she's honored to serve her community in the 23rd Legislative District to make positive change for all Washingtonians. I can tell you she's also in the criminal justice advocacy world. She's known throughout the country. She speaks everywhere. She really fights the good fight, and we're really proud and happy to have her tonight. So Tarra, you have about a half hour or so. Tell your story. Can't wait to hear it, and then we'll follow up with a Q&A afterwards. So Tarra, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for inviting me to speak with you all today and get to know fellow travelers. I like the language that you use. I have been following you too for a long time. I think you had me on your podcast maybe in 2016 or something, 2017, like a long time ago. But anyway, I just, hope that I can encourage people to never give up no matter what. So, Jeff talked about being sentenced in 2013 to the 30-month prison sentence. However, what most people don't realize about me is that I actually was in foster care and juvenile detention and in jail a few times before I ended up going to prison. And so, I came from generational poverty and violence, and everyone in my family has suffered with addiction and been incarcerated. I was actually the first person in my family to ever graduate from high school. And I did that at 16 years old with a baby. I got pregnant at 14, and I was living on the streets and homeless. And so, I really like to talk about that because I often find that people put us into two categories. Either you're an offender or a victim, somebody who has committed harm or has been harmed. And what I found through my time in prison and through all of these systems is that most of us who are currently in prison or facing charges also have been victimized in our lives. And oftentimes we haven't had the right healing supports. And so we turn to behaviors that end up leading us to the criminal legal system as defendants. And so, I remember when I was first sexually abused at 11 years old, I never, got the right support then. When I was born to drug addicted parents, from the time I was born, I think I never had a nurturing, loving parent. And so I have significant adverse childhood experiences and post-traumatic stress. And that can make me behave in so many ways if I don't stay, doing self-reflection and really thinking about, what is it that I'm missing today? It can, be drugs, alcohol, food, sex, gambling, relationships, shopping, so many things. And if I can imagine, I don't know a lot about the white collar crimes. I think that
Oh, Tarra, you're on mute.
am I unmuted now?
You're good.
Okay, sorry, I don't know how that happened.
No worries.
I decided I was going to sit outside and treat myself today because it's really nice here in Washington. It doesn't happen very often. So I said I'm going to sit out on my back patio and talk with you all. So yeah, I was saying, like, it doesn't matter our socioeconomic status. All of us can suffer with behavioral health challenges and not have those supports that we need, either through our own shame and not wanting to reach out to take advantage of those. So by the time, I was on my way to prison, I was a registered nurse because I graduated high school at 16. I went to community college. And I didn't know anybody who went to college, but somebody told me about Pell Grants and how I could it wouldn't impact my welfare check. And that's really what motivated me to get Pell Grants and go to a community college. Was I was on welfare. It was like $440 a month, and I had a baby and I couldn't buy him shoes with my food stamps. And someone told me, they'll pay your tuition, your books, you'll get money back. And that's what made me go to community college. And so, by the time I was going to prison, I was a registered nurse, and I thought I had kind of overcome all of the generational poverty, generational lack of, career and job opportunities and all of that stuff. But I had never really dealt with the childhood trauma. So again, it was coming up in relationships and in, not having boundaries or self-worth, and then drug addiction. So when I found myself in prison, I really did not know what I was going to do. First of all, it's so hard to be away from our children when we're incarcerated. And that was really just making my depression and anxiety worse. As a woman, I think, and everyone I met there had been sexually abused, and then to be dehumanized with these strip searches every time you have to, go visit your children. And just the way that we're treated in Washington state prisons and spoken to, and we're a number, we're offender, just dehumanizing, and no programming really where I was at. I went to a minimum security camp, and we didn't have, like any real programming. There was one certificate degree people could get in business, but because I already had a bachelor's degree, they weren't going to let me take that. So it was a lot of dead time, a lot of crocheting and watching TV. And we didn't even have like a yard really. It was horrible. But what I did there is I finally met other people, kind of like what you're doing here, which I love. I met other people who had similar lived experiences through the volunteer programs that came in, through 12-step recovery programs. And I always thought that I was different than everyone else in the world, and nobody could have, seen or done or been as bad as me and all of this. And so when they would share their stories, and then I saw that they were, clean off drugs for 20 years, married, buying houses, I thought, wow, there is some hope. And I don't have to live in shame anymore over my past. And that's really what happened for me while I was in prison. I started to let go of the shame I had been carrying since my childhood that didn't belong to me. And I also found, these volunteers that were coming in. And fortunately, it wasn't very far from my home. And so when I released, I went to work release first, and I was working at Burger King. And I, wasn't making much money. Minimum wage was $9 an hour, $9.19. But I would just try to have gratitude that at least I wasn't scrubbing toilets for 42 cents an hour anymore in prison, and I just, every day I woke up and just tried to have gratitude and hope for the future. And I connected with a lot of the volunteers that came to the prison because I didn't have a family of origin to fall back on. I didn't have much, but I found people, strangers who became like family. And so a couple of things. When I was in prison, I met these law students who came in, and they were trying to help the women navigate our family law issues. They didn't do any criminal law. Nobody, you couldn't get help for an appeal or anything like that. But if you had a family law case, they would help you with that. And so they were helping me navigate my divorce and custody issues. And also my nursing license was being taken away, and everything I owned went into collections, and I was going to have to file bankruptcy. And so all these other like civil legal problems, they were helping me navigate. And through that, they told me that they thought I should be a lawyer. And I thought, you are nuts, because up until then, the only lawyers I ever knew were my public defenders, and it was hit or miss if I liked them or not. I thought lawyers were these like supreme elite beings who were super wealthy, untouchable. I had no kind of shared interests with them or shared values. And they're like, no, we're going to be lawyers. We're going to be social justice lawyers. And I'm like, whoa, what's that? And I thought, I'm not smart enough. I don't know anything about the law. And they said, no, all you have to do is have a bachelor's degree. They'll teach you everything from the 3 branches of government on, right when you get into law school. I was, whoa, okay. And then they said, we think that you'll be able to become a lawyer because there's this guy named Sean Hopwood who, robbed banks, and he wrote a book called The Lawman. And he's right now at University of Washington in Seattle, an hour from my house. And he's a second-year law student. He's going to be a lawyer. And so I wrote that down in my journal when I was in prison as a possibility one day when I'm, dreaming about what I could do to rebuild my life. But I didn't really think that would happen. But after about 9 months of being out and working at minimum wage, I started to think to myself about how can I commit some financial crime just so I can, have housing for my kids or buy them shoes. I can't live off this Burger King paycheck. They're garnishing my paycheck to pay my court fines and fees. I can't afford rent. And just the thought of my mind going there So I thought, oh, maybe I can just sell drugs, but I won't use them this time and I can make money. Or maybe I can figure out how to, steal some things from the store, get into some, to make money. And just the thought of that really scared me because I always, thought that your thoughts become your actions, and all that. And so I went to, my recovery program. I just told on myself and, I'm afraid, I'm thinking this. And I remembered in my journal the name of the professor that they had given me to, the law students had given me to call and see if I could become a lawyer one day. So I called him up about 9 months after I was released, and I said, "Hey, this is my criminal history. It's 9 felonies all throughout my life. Yeah, and now I'm in recovery, and I'm going into prisons and jails and institutions, mental health institutions and stuff, and sharing a message. And I'm really committed to my recovery and all this." And he thought, well, that is, you had mitigating factors, and people get into the bar without that, and you are, really being active on that. And if you continue that while you go to law school, by then you'll have 5.5 years out, and you should be okay. Or you have 5.5 years clean off of drugs. And so I did. I applied to law school. Sean Hopwood, edited my personal essay, helped me with the LSAT prep. He was a student really close to my home, so I went and met him. And I took every opportunity I could in law school. I mean, really, I probably was working 80 to 100 hours a week, totally neglecting my self-care. I don't recommend it. But I was in survival mode and I wanted to find a new career doing something I love, because I loved being a nurse. I loved caring for people. I've always loved taking care of other people. And I thought, well, if I'm a lawyer and I'm doing public interest law, helping people coming out of prison, I can help them with the barriers to, child custody or their professional licenses, overcoming barriers to employment and housing and these types of things, vacating their criminal records, helping them with their court fines and fees and getting those reduced. And that's really just what I wanted to do. So I interned at 5 different public interest organizations. I founded a nonprofit while I was in law school. The governor appointed me to serve on 2 boards and commissions. I was elected the chair of the statewide reentry council alongside my friend, King County prosecuting attorney, Dan Satterberg. We got to actually hire the first executive director, who ended up being Christopher Poulos, who I recruited. He was down in Texas. I know he's been a guest speaker with you before. Dear friend of mine. I just saw him a couple weekends ago. He came over to my home, but he was in Texas running a recovery center. He had become a formerly incarcerated lawyer. And I recruited him up here, and now I'm so happy he lives here. But anyway, I was in law school just doing all these wonderful things. I graduated magna cum laude with the Dean's Medal and the Graduating Student Award. And then I went before that board to determine whether I could sit for the bar exam. And it was the same board that Sean Hopwood had gone through 2 years before me. And Sean's story, he will be the first to tell you, he came from a lot of privilege. He had nurturing parents. He also, his crimes were, more serious than mine. And, they looked at him and, said that he could become a lawyer, but they looked at me and said, she's too proud of her progress. And the fact that I had gotten this Skadden Fellowship, which is this really prestigious fellowship from the Skadden law firm. It's an international law firm, and they give out 30 of those every year for 35 years now. And nobody in my school had ever gotten one. Nobody in my state had ever got one, because it is generally for people that graduate from an Ivy League school. And I got it, and I was the first formerly incarcerated person, and I was going to do reentry law for my community, for people coming out. And I was, going to make $50,000 a year and be happy. That's what I wanted. And I was really proud that I had gotten to that point. And there's a thing about, that women are not supposed to be proud of their accomplishments. But that's what they, cited as a reason to not allow me to become a lawyer, is they felt I wasn't remorseful enough for my past behaviors, and I felt entitled to become a lawyer. And it was devastating because I had worked so hard. I had kept my nursing license the whole time. I did random drug testing for 5.5 years to keep my nursing license. Just so I could prove to the bar that I'm really in recovery. I had paid off my court fines and fees. I had got my financial affairs in order. I had to go bankrupt in 2015, right when I got out of prison, but I did that and then made sure I made payments on everything I was supposed to. And it was pretty painful to be told that. And so nobody had ever successfully appealed one of these bar association decisions before in my state. In fact, there was no process really. We didn't know, there was no in statute, there was no process on how to do it. And so thankfully, I had a lot of friends. I made a lot of friends in law school by interning everywhere and volunteering everywhere and sharing my story everywhere. In fact, when I applied, I had over 100 letters of recommendation from prosecutors and judges and law professors and attorneys and people in my recovery community. And just so many people had written letters for me. And when Skadden found out, they said, don't you worry, we're not going to take away your fellowship, even if you don't get in, which helped relieve a lot of stress because I was, poor, and I took out $200,000 in student loans to go to law school. And that really helped. And it was on a Good Friday. It was Friday. And I remember that Sunday just going to church. It was Easter, and really believing like the resurrection is coming. Like this must feel like what Jesus felt like. And I'm not super religious anymore at all, but I really found some strength in that story. And on Monday, the person who represented me at the bar hearing was my professor, John Straight, who was the person I had contacted who said that he thought I should apply. He took my case pro bono and represented me, and he was devastated. I think I was the first case he ever lost. And he thought there was no way that I wasn't getting in because everything I had done since I was arrested was so positive and extraordinary. And so that Monday, Skadden Law Firm joined a conference call with the ACLU of Washington with John Straight and with Sean Hopwood called in. And we determined that Sean would become my attorney and they would write a brief to the Supreme Court and try to encourage them to take the first case on bar admission up. Since I think it was like 1934, there was a written opinion, but there was never an open court hearing like there was for me. And then as soon as they filed that brief, the ACLU of Washington was filing an amicus brief, and that was signed on by dozens of organizations across the nation and law professors. And so when the Supreme Court got that, they decided they would take that case. And the hearing was set for November. So this was in April when this happened. And so I had to wait 7 months, and it was a lot of anxiety. And I will say that if I didn't have a solid foundation of recovery, that would be enough to make people relapse. And that's why I'm so passionate about making it easier for others, because people are trying to do the right thing. And then, you meet these barriers all the time, and it really can impact our mental health. And we can revert to, old behavior. But thankfully, I had a good support system. I was able to hold on. And the court case came, and Sean flew out from Washington, D.C. He was a professor at Georgetown Law School by then. And he represented me in this case. And it was so funny. I mean, I go back and watch that case sometimes. It's on TVW, so I can go back and watch it whenever I want. And just the justices were so mad. And they were like, so what's the difference between her and, say, a guy who, is in the same situation and gets this, like, they don't have to, Sean didn't have to say anything. Just his presence in representing me was showing the hypocrisy in the case. And and when we left the Temple of Justice that day, we thought it would take 4 or 5 months to get an opinion, because that's usually how long it takes. But by that afternoon, they told me, they called my lawyer and said, they were unanimously agreeing that I could sit for the bar and become a lawyer. And so I had never received justice from any system in my life. I felt like that was the most liberating and healing form of justice I could ever receive from a system. The swiftness, the unanimous opinion, the whole process, the questions the justices asked of the Bar Association, it was really healing for me and validating. And during that time, there was a lot of legislators watching this case as well. Legislators who care about progressive criminal justice reform and just humanity from both sides. And my representative was in the Temple of Justice that day, both my representative and now my senator. And my representative at the time, her name was Sherry Appleton. And she, before she got elected, she was a lobbyist for the Defenders Association. And she was huge on criminal justice reform. And she said, Tara, I really need to retire, but I will not retire unless you run. And she was 77 at the time. And I thought, man, you are nuts, because there's no way. Like, there's a reason there's no formerly incarcerated people elected, because our past will be used against us and all of this. So I at first told her no. It took several times of her asking. And it also took being the subject of a hit piece in a different political campaign when I wasn't even running, because they were trying to paint my friend as being soft on crime because she supported my Supreme Court case to become a lawyer. And so they sent the mailer out to like 30,000 homes and are, Emily Randall is soft on crime. She supports Tarra Simmons and, all this. So it's funny. I said, you know what? They're going to talk about me whether I run or not. And I really had to think about the privilege that I had in that I did go through that Supreme Court fight. The bar wanted to keep it confidential. They fought with us. We had to fight to say, no, we don't want it confidential, because we want it to be able to guide future law school applicants. Nobody else running, formerly incarcerated or not, had a order from a Supreme Court saying they are a person of good moral character. So I thought, you know what, if I don't go, who else is going to go first and break that concrete ceiling and try and normalize it? And if we think about the history of social movements in America, at one time, there was no women, there was no people of color, there was no LGBTQ people, no refugees, no, every marginalized identity has had to have somebody go first and start to normalize it. So I decided I was going to run, and my representative strategically helped me. She announced her retirement and nobody else knew. And so the next day I could launch my campaign, and she told all of her supporters to support me. And, she shepherded me in. And that's what you have to do in politics. And then, the COVID happened and George Floyd. And so in 2020, I was elected. I think I got about 68% of the vote or something. It was great. And I started serving in 2021. And since then, I've served 4 sessions. My swearing in day was pretty intense. I've written about it in my book that is forthcoming, because I had to drive down to meet the entire perimeter of the Capitol with shoulder to shoulder law enforcement, National Guard, Washington State Patrol, local police, because of the insurrection that just happened. And we had some people on the governor's lawn and threats and all this stuff. So, and I remember driving up there, and, I've been arrested. My father had been beaten by police. My kids have been profiled, just so many things. I never felt safe with law enforcement. I never felt like they were there to help me. And I remember I had to drive up, show them my ID, and only members could come inside the perimeter. And then they were so nice to me, and I got through, and I had to stop, and I just started crying. And I said, this is what privilege feels like. The police are here to protect me and keep me safe. And I had never felt that. And so it's been really different. I walk in different worlds. I came from such violence, and I grew up in the Black community. My father is Latino. I come from, the hood in Stockton, California, poverty. And now I am, you know, Pete Buttigieg, the US Secretary for Transportation. He comes to town and he'll call me and say, Tara, do you want to get together? Do you want to, talk about workforce barriers in transportation jobs for people with criminal history? I mean, I go to the governor's house. I got a golden tennis shoe award from my US Senator. I have celebrities that reach out and fund my campaign. And it's just so weird because now I walk in this world too, and I never quite feel I belong there at all still. But I don't feel like I'm really part of my community as much as I would like to be either, because now I have this power. And so it's hard navigating living in these multiple worlds. But I have been able to do a lot of great work. My first bill, freshman bill, usually it's like renaming a street or something. Mine restored the right to vote to all people as soon as they exit prison, regardless if they are on community custody, in work release, in jail. It doesn't matter. As long as your head isn't on a 24-hour state issued pillow, you can vote in my state. And that was my first bill through. I've made over $200 million in investments in reentry here in Washington. We never funded reentry nonprofits. Now we do. We have a fund for it. We fund legal aid for people with criminal history for both, post-conviction relief, but also for reentry. And when I was gonna, do my Skadden fellowship, I would have been like one of two in the whole state that did reentry law. Now there's like a whole reentry law movement and post-conviction stuff. I've, really worked hard on sentencing reform. I haven't quite gotten as much as I want there yet, but I'm still working on it. When I got out of prison, everyone left with $40 in a bus ticket. Now they leave with a 6-month housing voucher, $300, and hopefully some wraparound case management support, especially if they need that. We have Medicaid waivers in jails, like so many different things I've been able to accomplish in 4 sessions. I also completely abolished all fines and fees unless it's restitution to an individual victim. So if it's to an insurance company or a state agency, you can get that removed. If it's and if it's not restitution, you no longer even get that. So most people convicted of a crime now get $0 because that's a barrier to reentry. So it's been wonderful. I've also done a lot in healthcare just because, I can't just be a one issue candidate or one issue person. My community here in the 23rd really cares about environment and healthcare and education. And so I do other things as well, with a particular eye of using my years as a nurse in healthcare and making sure we get to healthcare for all. But it's been great. I'm running for re-election now, and I anticipate I will win and go on to serve my 5th and 6th session. And I also have been working to get other formerly incarcerated people to run and support them. And so we have 6 of us across the nation now that I know of. They're all coming out in September for my Freedom Ball. Oh, one other thing. Before I got elected, the gentleman who is now my seatmate senator passed a bill called the New Hope Act. And that allowed, I was never going to be able to be free from the stigma of the felon label because my crimes, some of them were not eligible to be vacated, and your time didn't start until you paid off your fines and fees. Well, in September of last year, he represented me in court. There's a PBS documentary about it, and I no longer have a criminal history. And I cannot tell you how liberating that feels. I'm sorry for people who have federal convictions and can never get that unless you have a pardon, but don't give up, because I thought I wouldn't ever get that either unless I had a pardon. I applied for a pardon. The pardon board recommended that the governor give it to me, and she didn't. This was many years ago, and that just made me feel more defeated. And so I thought I would always live with that stigma, which would prevent me from, volunteering in my new grandson's school. I have a new grandbaby. He's 2 months old. And I was never able to volunteer in my kids' schools. And, now I went to Australia recently. I could just, not have to check that box anymore. And it feels really new and different. And I'm still adjusting, but I decided every September I had a big freedom celebration after my court hearing. And I decided I'm going to throw that same celebration for everybody who has gained freedom of some kind in the last year, whether that's getting off paper, getting out of prison, getting your record expunged. And so I'm doing that next September, and all the formerly incarcerated electeds are coming in from out of town to be a part of that. So I keep, trying to work on sentencing reform and reentry and everything else, and doing all I can to support people in the meantime. Today I got a call, today I got a call from my middle school, and they have created an annual award for a student who overcomes adversity. And June 17th will be the first year, and I get to go be part of that. And that means more to me than any accomplishment, like career accomplishment that I have been able to get, because it makes me know that I'm living my purpose. And that's because I got expelled from that middle school. And now I go back there and I share a message of hope with those youth. And the administration decided they wanted to start this annual award. And I am going to create a scholarship too, to go along with it. So I'm really excited about that, because that means I'm walking in my purpose and it's validating. So thank you all for listening. Don't ever give up. Never, never, never. Laws will change. And as long as we still have a heartbeat and breath, we have hope.
Tara, thank you. That was so incredible.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. Just to see how you've progressed and you continue to fight the fight. And I know, I know personally that you gotta like battle through exhaustion, and am I taking care of myself enough? And do I really have enough to give on any given day to people? And yeah, I admire you so much. So thank you. Really, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for everything you do for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you for being my community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So everybody, if you would like to ask Tara a question or share your experience with Strength and Hope, please put your name in chat and I will call on you. And let's see, we're gonna go first to oh, I have a lot of hearts in here, so I'm not sure who wants to share. All right, put your names back in chat, please, and we'll make a list. Well, let's start with General Parker.
Hello, Tara. How you been doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm still old and ugly.
Never.
Hey, I had a couple of quick questions, but you already answered one, and that was going to be you know, going through what you've gone through. What have you done to reach back? But you just answered that. But what I want to know is, especially being in the situation that I've been in, I've applied for clemency 6 times, been denied from several different governors. I finished college last year, did not 4 years of college in 9 months, and finished it and trying to get into law school, but been denied by every last one of them I applied to. Uh, and with the verdict last week with Donald Trump, and you brought something up earlier about privilege.
Mm-hmm.
With him being a convicted felon and still being allowed to run for the presidency, what do you feel about them holding anything against people who've got convictions now? They either want to run for office or get a job, when they allowed this man to run for office, for the highest office in the land. So what do you feel about that?
I have issued statements to the media on this topic, and my message is twofold. One, for all of those who say the system is so unjust because he's innocent, don't ever forget that when it's a poor person or a person of color as the defendant. If the system's unjust here, it's always unjust. And please, stop picking when you say it's unjust. Number two, I don't think that he should be excluded from the ballot. And that's because I don't think anybody should be excluded from the ballot. I don't, I have fought to get our voting rights back. You know, and I don't want him to lose his voting right, because if I believe in that, I can't choose. I can't choose because I don't like him. And I'm sure this call is mixture of Republicans and Democrats. And so, you know, and I'm kind of calling on my progressive friends here who are saying he should lose his voting right and not be able to run for office. And I'm like, hold on, you were just with me when I passed my freshman bill to restore voting rights, which allows us to run for office, right? So you
Right.
can't be a hypocrite either. So I don't care if they're progressive or conservative right now. Let's just apply the same standards to everybody, which should be liberation for all. And the system is unjust. And I mean, I watched the trial. I think he's guilty, but anyway, and I would exclude him for other reasons, but that's my personal feeling. I don't like his politics, right? So, but I wouldn't do it for lawful reasons that my progressive friends are trying to do. And I keep yelling at them about using the F word constantly. You know, now they're, oh, he's a convicted felon, he's a criminal. I've tried to train the people in my caucus to use people first language. You know, refer to us as a person with a conviction record. And now, because you don't like him, you're reverting back. And so I call them out too.
Thank you, because I found progressive, it's as long as they do it to somebody else, it's all right. But when you do it to them, it's a different story, and I never liked
Yeah.
that, you know. So
No.
Thank you, General. Great question. And Tara, I tell you, I can almost see Trump's house if I crane my neck enough out my top window. And the one thing he and I have in common is that neither of us can vote in Florida. So
Yep.
that's the way
Right.
it is. That's the way it is for now.
Yeah.
Let's see, Roshan, you're next, and then Bill. Roshan, are you there? All right, Bill, let's go to you.
Oh, Tara, thank you. What a great presentation, and I'm very excited about today and being able to hear you speak.
Thank you.
One of the things I was curious about, I know it might seem superficial, but on the first day that you went to the Capitol to report, you know, as a representative, how were you received by? How do you feel you were really received by the people that were serving there?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I had been doing advocacy for so long in Olympia that I became, well, not for so long, but for a few years before I got elected, that a majority of the people in my caucus, in the Democratic caucus, and now I think it's different depending on the state you're in too, right? Because we have a trifecta here where the Democrats control everything. The Democrats were welcoming to me, and the Republicans were not so welcoming to me. And I will say, you know, my speaker, she's a woman and she's the first lesbian speaker. And she was in the Temple of Justice on the day of my Supreme Court hearing as well. And she is a former attorney and all this, you know, she was endorsing me, supporting me, and so many of them were, you know, endorsing me during the course of my campaign. And so I felt like they welcomed me. We were just there to adopt rules to allow us to go back home and work on Zoom for COVID. So we didn't stay long. I'll say I've tried really hard to make relationships across the aisle based on humanity, and I care about my Republican colleagues. And when they have an illness in their family, you know, I go talk to them. Some of them are in recovery, and so that's good. We can bond over those things. And I would say that my experience being in politics now, I would say if I was in a Republican state that had a Republican trifecta and I was running as a Republican, they would probably accept me and the Democrats wouldn't. I just feel like it's our issues tend to be super political and they shouldn't be. They tend to be super partisan. And because we don't have power, we don't have a big PAC giving money. So we are the easy like population to run against each other on. Because if you look, I've seen criminal justice reform happening in Republican held states. And we saw, Trump and Jared Kushner did the First Step Act. We've seen, things happen, right? From both sides. And now that I've been there long enough, I just stick to my values and what I'm fighting for and just try to make as many friends as I can. But there's a lot of politicking that goes on. But I do feel like I was pretty welcomed. I would say not so much now because I do call people out for behaviors. I'm kind of that ankle biter member. I don't want to be in leadership. I don't want to go up and run for governor or president. I'm there to represent my district and my values and the people who are the furthest away from power and resources. And I kind of I make a lot of waves.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah.
you, Bill. Thank you, Taryn. Thank you for paraphrasing Glenn Martin there
There you go.
for a
That's
moment.
right.
Let's see. Next is Tom, then Julie.
Okay.
Hi, Tara. My name is Tom Gage, and many years ago, I was a member of the New Hampshire legislature. As a matter of fact, in Concord, there are three great institutions of government: the state capitol, the prison, and the mental institution. I made it into two of those.
Okay.
And having now moved to Connecticut, I don't think I'll be in the third, but it's not impossible. It's interesting that you should be on tonight, because recently, for some reason, I've been thinking about prison. And well, I think about it every once in a while, but I've really been thinking about some of the discipline problems that they have, and I really strongly believe that one of the things that needs to be done is to have opportunities for everybody, at least at a certain security level. I was at a very low security level because I was a white collar criminal.
Mhm.
And the thing that really needs to, one of the pervasive things about prison is, what you were saying about crocheting. It's the boredom. This
Mhm.
is extremely boring. I mean, people watch these movies and think everybody's getting raped and knifed and all the time, and really what really people are trying to do is get the opportunity to watch something on TV beside UFC, and I wonder whether you have had any opportunity in the legislature. It sounds like you've been very active to see about creating more opportunities for incarcerated people to just do things that develop their mind, develop their better behavioral practices, and frankly, have something to do other than clean toilets for 42 cents an hour. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, absolutely. I was so lucky to go to Norway last September with leaders of my Washington State prisons. We have been implementing over time new programming to get people out of solitary confinement, really like intensive case management and stuff. But yes, programming. I was actually at 2 hours ago on the call with somebody who, because of the BEAD program, the broadband, our state just received $3 billion to make sure we get broadband into every single inch of our state where people live. So, because we know now that internet connection is like a basic utility, like water and electricity, right? But not in COVID, kids couldn't go to school online because they didn't have broadband access throughout our state. And so this is a perfect opportunity to have, workforce development in our prisons. So you have that transition into a family wage job when you get out, because they make good money, $40, $50 an hour. to learn how to be a broadband technician.
Wow.
And so I'm always looking for these different types of programming. I've been a champion for higher education in prisons. I got a budget proviso for the Black Prisoners Caucus Teach program this last session, because that program serves people of every race, and it's more like liberal arts education, and it doesn't matter what your release date is or if you even have one. So a lot of times we find people are excluded because they don't have long enough, or they have too long of the time or whatever. So really getting like higher education into our prisons for people that want to pursue that. I've co-sponsored several bills around the Pell reinstatement here from the federal government, so the state doesn't have to pay all the money anymore for prison education, but also making sure that people don't have to use their Pell Grant if they don't want to, because for whatever reason they are only taking the courses offered at that institution to not be bored, but when they get out they really want to pursue the degree of their choosing. I have helped get funding for the University of Washington Tacoma campus, where we have a wonderful gentleman named Dr. Christopher Beasley. You might know him, Jeff, but he's a PhD, formerly incarcerated person, and he is a tenure tracked professor at the University of Washington. And he created a formerly incarcerated students group, but also a pathway now from the women's prison, really close to that campus. And we were able to get funding from the state, and my friend Omari Amili got the job there. Now he's the executive director of the Husky Pathways. So, and we've done a lot around already for community colleges, for people to have reentry navigators from the prison to community college. So we are doing a lot more, but I still think there is more to be done, because especially around apprenticeship programs, higher education isn't for everyone. And I want to make sure there's several different avenues to people being streamlined into a way to provide for themselves when they leave. Because if that can happen, I guarantee we will reduce recidivism.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Great question. Next up is, let's see, I got lost here.
Roshan is back on, Jeff.
What's that, Keith?
Roshan came back on. If he asked if he could speak next.
All right, Roshan, Roshan, do you have a question?
Yeah, Jeff, thank you. Tara, I think your story is remarkable, and I've heard a lot of stories throughout my journey. I think this is one of those remarkable stories. My question to you is, when you were going through this journey from day one, I know you told us that earlier on in your childhood as well. How did you get back when you obviously, when you fall back a little? How did you come back and stayed and then continued your journey so powerfully? I mean, how did you get back all the time? What was the resilience? Where did you find the resilience in your spirits, the soul? I mean, what made you stay and fight? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Yeah. Thank you, Roshan. That is the $1 million question that my therapist asks. And I guess, I've really thought about that, because how have I been able to stay resilient and continue to go forward? We think, I had a paternal grandmother who loved me when I was with her. I'll say also, my father loved me, even though he was addicted to crack and, had me in neighborhoods riddled with gun violence. My father never abused me or hurt me, and I always knew he loved me. So I guess, so I've been able to maintain some of my spirit throughout so many difficulties and so many traumatic experiences. And I will say, since I had my first son when I was 14, I was always committed to giving him a better life than what I ever had. And that has been my driving force as well. Now, along the way, I've met so many people who have also shown me kindness and grace, even when I didn't deserve it, and love. And I think also one of those people, and General Parker just talked about Just Leadership USA, but David Mensah, who is the trainer of Breakthrough Action Leadership, he taught me some real skills that I continue to use to this day. In 2018, I went through that program and I learned Breakthrough Action Leadership. And it's about becoming a good leader, but really I apply it to my everyday life. And that is being a person who does self-reflection, who is open to feedback, and who can do the, self-reflection in a non-judgmental way. So when I make a mistake, it's okay. I don't have to hate myself. I still make mistakes. I say the wrong thing sometimes, and I learn from it, and I don't judge or shame myself. I don't need to carry shame that doesn't help me. And so I do a lot of self-reflection, and I think I learned that in my recovery community as well. It's all about looking at our part, what we contributed to a certain situation. And so I love myself today. I don't hate myself, and I can keep coming back no matter what happens because I have faith. I have faith in, like I said, I'm no longer religious. I have faith in the universe. I have faith in God. I have faith in karma, whatever you want to call it, that if I continue to be a good person and do my best, and when I make a mistake, learn from it, it's going to work out no matter what happens. I truly believe that.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Good
Thank,
question.
thank you, Tara.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you.
Roshan.
Uh-huh.
Julie, you're up next.
Hi, Tara. I
Hi.
just want to say it's kind of like meeting a rock star for me. When I was in prison in Texas, I was the head tutor of a group of ladies that I was teaching GED, and an article came out in the New York Times that had you in it and referring to Sean helping you get your bar license. And I actually was an attorney in my pre-incarceration life. And so I'm doing the opposite, trying to get back and try to get rebarred maybe at some point. But I just wanted to tell you how much your story meant to the ladies that I taught, because a lot of them was, they would see, well, I can't do that. I couldn't never be a lawyer. And then I would have a copy of your story to give to them and recommend Sean's book. So I'm so glad that you're going to have a book as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell you how inspiring you are. And I am just at the end of my home confinement journey. And when I was in federal prison, we don't have the people that will come and help us with our family law issues. And that's something I really saw the women struggle with. Losing custody of their children, and we don't even have the forms and what to do with that. So that's kind of been on my heart, that when I get ready to get out there, that I'm trying to work towards some solution for that. But you've really inspired me, and I just want to thank you, and just keep going strong and don't look back. It's up when it's good to give people a role model.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that, knowing that I am making an impact is what keeps me going, keeps me strong. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm glad to be in community with you. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. Tara, lots of former lawyers in our white collar support group, as you can probably tell already.
Yes. Yes.
Let's see, John, you're next.
Thank you, Tara. What an inspiring, incredible story. Thanks so much for sharing. I was a white collar felon, and it came from privilege, but we all seem to leave prison with the same excruciating self-loathing that we have to overcome. I think that's the one thing, we all share.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you if you could tell us about your forthcoming book.
What's that?
If you could tell us something about your forthcoming book.
My upcoming book. Well, I will tell you, I've written 5 chapters and I have an extended outline and a proposal, but I'm looking for an agent. I also have a movie offer in my inbox, and I'm looking for a lawyer. So I need to get on that. If we have any entertainment attorneys in our network, Jeff, We'll
Well,
talk offline.
we have a lot of entertaining lawyers. I don't know if that's the same thing.
Yeah. So, the book really is about, it's more geared towards my upbringing and my life story, but it also, goes through, the Supreme Court hearing and, has quotes from the justices and, I love it because it's really written in a way that is a good, like, is this real? Can this really be real? It's a real life story, but it is written in a very descriptive way. And the scenes of, like, going to get sworn in with all these police officers, it's like it really should be a movie, and hopefully it will be. I do have an offer, and I just don't even know anything about this type of, entertainment stuff. So I'm cautious. And I need to get some legal counsels very soon. Yeah.
Well, if you call me, Tara, I'm happy to make some introductions for you.
Thank you.
I'd
Thank
love
you.
to. Let's see. Any other questions from anybody? Bill has a question in here. Tara, have you ever had an opportunity to speak at a federal prison?
No, and I would love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, they make it. I typed that in when somebody else was asking their question, but that's the one thing that has always bugged me, because there's such an opportunity there. It's a huge population, and it's virtually an island.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, I mean, I would, one of my goals is to go back to where I served, just to meet some of the men that are there, but to be able to share certain things. And it's not possible. You can try, but they're going to say no every time. And so I just wanted to see if that was something you had an opportunity to do.
No, but Topeka Sam goes into the federal prisons. Now she got a pardon from Trump, but she was able to go in before then. I know a lot of and Chris Poulos and Sean Hopwood. So I would say your conviction shouldn't be a disqualifier to going into federal prison. I go into the state prisons because that's where I served my time. That's where my dad served his time, and I live here. And so I go into the Washington state prisons regularly. But I would love to go into a federal prison. We don't have any in Washington state. We have maybe the RJC, like a receiving.
Yeah.
But that's it. So yeah. I say never give up. Keep trying.
Bill, I've gone into federal prisons, and I've spoken there, and my wife Lynn taught a yoga and meditation class there. So Bill,
No kidding. All right. So which one did you go to? Did you go to Otisville?
No, Danbury.
Danbury. Okay.
Danbury, yeah, Danbury Low men's. But we'll talk about it. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Laura.
Hi, Tara. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I can't tell you how meaningful it is to hear how you've overcome so much and accomplished so much. And it really is an inspiration for those of us who are in the beginning of the process, looking down the road, wondering what next. I was curious, could you provide, or do you have recommendations for those of us who are interested in trying to give back in a similar fashion, but we're not attorneys before, but wanting maybe to go back to law school? Are there law schools that are more friendly to situations such as ours? Or are there recommendations on a path to follow to maybe be more accepted, if you will, into a law program?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't speak for every state because I don't know, but I will say here in Washington, we even have a scholarship now for a formerly incarcerated law student at Seattle University School of Law, where I graduated from. Our bar association and our Supreme Court are so educated now on issues of redemption and recidivism. We even had another contested case where I think the first one since me where the person was denied at the character and fitness board,
Mhm.
but allowed the Supreme Court overruled it and allowed him to sit. And he was convicted of a child sex crime. And so that is one of the most stigmatizing, I think, convictions people can have. I would say it really has to do with like time since the offense. Usually, you know, I would say there should be at least 5 years probably between the time since offense, but in my case, they even recognized time in prison or is recovery time because you can get infractions. I didn't have any infractions in prison. I was able to show that. I was, you know, all these things showing that I had clear conduct since I was arrested. So I would say if I was going to bet on anything, I'd bet on Washington state because of all the work that I've done and we have done on the ground here. I don't know of anybody who has been denied since my case. And
Wow.
there's been and I'll say even another friend had 65 federal convictions for racketeering and organized crime. Yeah, but you know, being a lawyer is not the only way you can give back either, you know. There's so much work to be done in public policy that you don't have to go to law school. I tell people, unless you're going to represent clients, you might not want to take out all that debt and pass the bar. Well, we don't have to take the bar here in Washington anymore either. You can do it through
Oh, wow.
experiential learning. So, they just did that recently because in COVID, they took away the requirement to pass the bar. And
Wow.
so they just changed the rules on that too. And we just had a big task force meeting last month about the new recommendations for character and fitness. And, you know, potentially even the Supreme Court's considering right now, they might do away with character and fitness admission issues altogether and put more money into discipline and like holding bad actors accountable than keeping people out.
Well, thank you for all the work you're doing and thank you for that information.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks,
Thank
Laura.
you, Laura. And for those of you who will be on the White Collar Support Group call on Monday night, I will be selling discount plane tickets to the state of Washington for anyone who wants to go there. And apparently it is very felon friendly. For well, how would I put it? Because not everyone's formally incarcerated.
Yeah.
Right? Some people
Yeah.
are some people are just justice impacted and haven't been
Yep.
to prison. So
Uh-huh.
very friendly state, apparently. Okay, General, we're gonna have you ask our last question or make the last statement, and then we're gonna sign off. So, General, take it away.
Hey, Tara, how you doing, girl? You know I got nothing but love for you. We go back over 6 years. I remember you when, and I'm nothing but proud of you. But you
Thank
also know me, and you know I always ask the hard questions, you know.
Yes, you
So,
do. It's
but it's
okay.
always coming from a place of love.
Yes.
I do that now. Now, being who I am, I just
Uh-huh.
got to know, even after everything you've accomplished and everything you've done, and you know I'm proud of you and I love you. But
Mhm.
if you look a little bit more like me, do you think that your trip would have been possible? And if it was possible, do you think it would have been as easy?
You know, I really feel a lot of times if I was, say, a black woman, right, it would be much more difficult. I do believe there's bias inherent in everything. I will say
Mm,
I'm really proud that my Supreme Court, and I will say that sexism played a role in me not being, you know, let to sit for the bar from the beginning. So
Mhm.
there's so many different types of ways that we are discriminated against,
right,
women and people of color. And my two sons are black and they have been profiled by police and pulled over for very suspicious reasons, you know. And I'm
right,
always thinking about the community I grew up in, which was a predominantly poor black community. When I think about policy and these issues, and I do think that I would have had a harder time if I was a black woman. I will say I am very proud of my Washington State Supreme Court that is a majority minority. Um, I think we only have 2 white justices.
Mm.
We have a black woman who is lesbian and has a disability. We have a Native American woman. We have Filipina and Mexican woman who wrote the opinion in my case. Our chief is Mexican. And Yeah, we have a majority, and in the legislature, even here in Washington is super white. Our population's only 4% Black here. But out of 149 legislators, I think we have 20 something Black members. We have a higher rate, but I will say that my experience is it doesn't matter. You can diversify things. But the systems and the people that work within those systems, unless they're critically analyzing things, can perpetuate the racial disproportionality and all of that. So I do think that, General, if I was a Black woman, it would be even harder.
Okay. Well, I love you and I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. And it looks like I'm going to become to Washington to become a lawyer.
There you go. Apply to Seattle U.
General, thank you for your question. And Tarra Simmons, thank you so much for being our speaker guest tonight. You were just outstanding and, really a power of example for all of us. And God bless you. So everyone, again, you can find out more information about our White Collar Support Group and all our events on our website, prisonist.org. That's prisonist like feminist. And we will be posting this on our website and on YouTube sometime in the next day or so. So blessings, everyone. Reach out to one another, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.